So I think that's one of the coolest parts that I see when we do these kind of planning sessions before hackathon starts, is really trying to think through, okay, yeah, we can build something that's cool and flashy, but what is actually going to solve a problem for, because it'll help us to build on that as we move forward. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sitecore Water Cooler, the casual conversation podcast dedicated to covering all things related to Sitecore, including product updates, implementations, insights, getting the most out of your Sitecore investment, and more. I'm your co-host, Maggie Burke, Sitecore Operations Director and Sitecore MVP at AmericanEagle.com. For the fifth time now in the last 6 years, AmericanEagle.com took home another victory in the annual Sitecore Hackathon event. It's a 24-hour coding extravaganza, if you will, that results in over 90 teams around the globe competing to create a useful module, leveraging the latest and greatest with Sitecore and their products. We are joined today by the members of our winning team, our Chief Architect, James Gregory, Senior Architect, Mohammed Siam, Senior Developer, Simon Dabrowski, as well as our Senior Account Manager, Casey Stanutz, who helped in the planning of this event. James, Mohammed, Simon, Casey, welcome to the Water Cooler.
Thank you. Thanks, Maggie.
All right. So wanting to kind of set the stage, start with some introductions from you guys, because obviously everybody here has been in the Sitecore space for quite some time. We got multi-year MVPs, a lot of people that have been around for quite a while. So I'm going to start with you, James, if you can just kind of kick us off and let us know, how long have you been in this space and kind of what brings you here today?
Well, I've been riding the Sitecore wave since 2013. Had many titles, senior dev, architect, technical manager, consultant, but
a man of many hats.
Despite the title, it's always the same job. Just make it work, figure it out, get it done.
Yeah, always being successful. That's the way to do it. So great. Mohammed, how about you?
So I'm working with AmericanEagle.com as a Sitecore architect for the last 8 years, and working with the Sitecore ecosystem for around 10 years now. I'm also a Sitecore MVP for the last 9 years. So it has been a while with Sitecore.
Absolutely. Almost double digits for you. That's crazy. Very cool. How about you, Simon?
Yep. So my current role is a senior developer. Been working with Sitecore. This is my 7th year. So when I started American Eagle, it was actually my first introduction to Sitecore as a junior developer, learning the platform. So it's been almost 7 years now, and I've done the hackathon for 6 of those 7 years.
That's awesome.
So
lucky number 7. Very cool.
Yeah.
And then Casey, how about you?
Casey Stanutz, Senior Sitecore Account Manager. I help plan, roadmap, work with our clients from the live site perspective, as well as just kind of working with the developers, working out requirements and figuring stuff out, like James said.
There you go. Man of many hats, man of many hats. Very cool. All right. So just wanted to talk a little bit about what Hackathon is. So obviously this, as mentioned from most of the team, all of you guys have been a part of this multiple years, but it's a 24-hour community-driven event, and teams of 1 to 3 members can sign up to be eligible. So you don't have to be in a team. Honestly, one to 2 people can do it as well. And the goal of the event is to really just build and submit a Sitecore module that best implements one of the topics of Hackathon. And we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the planning, but the topics that are released are not actually released until 1 hour before the event starts. So the teams that are participating don't actually have any time really to figure out ahead of time, like what they're going to build. It really is a 24-hour event. So that makes it really cool and really exciting because it kind of gets the creative juices flowing, if you will. The organizing team releases 3 categories, as I just mentioned, that, then the teams can actually select from in terms of what they want to build. And they are, as I just mentioned, released 1 hour before the event. So, we'll get into kind of the war room that we do in terms of planning out what we want to go ahead and build. So getting into the planning, Casey, do you want to start off with explaining just some of the strategy that we have behind this event? Obviously, strategy is one of my favorite topics to talk about on this podcast and how important the planning is. So just kind of getting into that first hour once the topics are released, like what does it look like and how do we actually get to these winning submissions?
Yeah, definitely, Maggie. So this year there were 2 different categories for the kind of the idea or the creation of Hackathon. So one was the best use of AI, which that's blowing up everywhere. Everyone wants to do something with AI. And then also there was another one where it was best module with XM or XP or XM Cloud. both of those topics are very trending. Everyone's very interested in those things right now. And so when we started planning, when we jumped into our Teams call this year, we had a lot of remote. Our team was remote this year. So we jumped on our Teams call. We started talking about brainstorming our ideas. We started kind of talking through the process. And the biggest thing for us is we like to think of ideas and come up with a module that, number one, is going to be fun and exciting for the developers to implement, but also what's going to maybe help us down the line in a project, or if we have a specific use case or requirement for a project or within one of our clients where, yeah, we think this could be a really kind of worthwhile module to implement something that's going to help a real life problem. That's another thing that goes into our planning is just we want to solve for something. We want to make something cool, but really solve for that problem and come up with a really awesome idea.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key part to talk about too, is that when it comes to the planning and the aspects, and I think why we tend to win every year in some form of the submission is that we are thinking about it from a client perspective, and we are really trying to think about it from real life situations that we deal with. And it doesn't always have to be a client on the business side. A lot of times too, it could be, what are we solving for from a development standpoint? Because we know that plenty of the clients that we work with have in-house teams that are struggling with certain things that maybe they're running into roadblocks or something, or will eventually run into roadblocks with something that we want to help them solve for. So I think that's one of the coolest parts that I see when we do these kind of planning sessions before Hackathon starts, is really trying to think through, okay, yeah, we can build something that's cool and flashy, but what is actually going to solve a problem for, because it'll help us to build on that as we move forward. So very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
So with that, I would love to hear from the team in terms of just talking about we've talked obviously now at this point with Casey about how we came up with the idea, but what exactly was the submission that we, went through and built? And if we could give a little bit of insight into that. So James, I'll kick it over to you. And of course, team, feel free to chime in, but, what was the idea and kind of maybe the why behind, what we built?
Sure. Yeah. So, we want to be relevant. We want to make something that's useful for our daily job. But the other thing I really like about Hackathon is that it's just a time to take a step outside the daily grind, have a creative space, get back to the passion of programming, do something you enjoy. But we wanted to kind of dig into some of the areas that we haven't had as much exposure to. So, we chose the XM Cloud module because I really enjoyed the module community in the past years, but it's kind of shrunk a little bit as people have moved to the cloud. And so trying to reignite, like, what is it to build modules for the cloud? And so it seems like there's a bright future now for modules again. So Sitecore's introduced their Sitecore block system, which I think is just a great tool to use Sitecore's design system and then to build like admin apps. So we wanted to do something with that and explore that more. And then we also wanted to spend more time with Sitecore Connect and just get more experience working with a different flow and automation. So we want to use Sitecore Block, we want to use Sitecore Connect, we want to build like an admin module. And so we thought, just to kind of prototype it all, we just play around with data flow automation, like getting data in and out of Sitecore. We'll just use CSVs as a source to pump it into Sitecore and export from Sitecore into a CSV, and just leverage the power of Sitecore Connect for all of that mapping and running. But then essentially giving an easy button dashboard where we can just hit a button on our custom module that invokes those. And so you can kind of think of it as like, hey, a developer or technical person might set up the flows, but then you can expose that in a very simplified dashboard and see the history of those jobs and all that.
That sounds great. So can you actually give us a little bit of insight into what exactly is Sitecore Connect? Because I know that that's part of the ecosystem that, Sitecore is releasing with these SaaS products, but just for the listeners that don't really know what Sitecore Connect is, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. As the name kind of implies, connect your connecting systems. So you're able to bridge between different systems. So Sitecore has a number of connectors that expose it. Maybe you're pushing into Power BI. Maybe you're pushing into your email workflows. Any other systems, there's likely already a connector. If there's not a direct connector for your marketing tool or customer platform or what have you, reporting platform, you can use standard APIs. So like, GraphQL endpoint or some SQL query or some kind of standard technology to kind of push and pull data back and forth.
Very cool. Very cool.
And it's hard to really know what it is until you've played around with it a little bit. And it really is amazing how easy it makes all those intricacies.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
So in a nutshell, it's low code, no code data movement.
All right. So question to the team, what's it like to compete for 24 hours? I mean, again, as I mentioned, you guys have all done this multiple years at this point. We've all got, multi-year winners in this room, but what's it like to really compete for 24 hours? Because again, a lot of you guys are doing kind of the architecting and the coding on your, 9 to 5 jobs, but 24 hours is a lot. So, can any of you guys give just some insight into what it's like? Is it different? Is it, any tricks into what, helping to compete for 24 hours? Because you guys keep signing up for the event, so you have to like it in some capacity.
I can speak to that. So, I mean, being on a Friday night, it is kind of hard because you've had a full week of work, and it just feels like you've got another half of a week, so 2.5 days roughly of work ahead of you. And just make sure you get enough sleep a couple nights before. Usually I think we've tried initially when I first started doing the hackathon, I thought, okay, I'm just going to pull an all-nighter and work. But I found that, even getting like a 3 or 4 hour nap in the middle of the night, like really does help coming back and refreshing your mind to get back to work the next day.
And
plenty of coffee, snacks.
I feel like I heard a rumor too, Simon, that you've brought a cot into the office before in years past.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I did. Sleeping bag, pillow.
Very nice. Very nice.
For me, I just check in with them. Every couple hours, I will check in with the team, see how things are going, just making sure we're crushing any roadblocks, if there are any things we're getting stuck on. So I just like to keep tabs, keep checking in with the team and making sure they're progressing well.
The morale booster, Casey the cheerleader, right?
Oh yeah. Go team.
Very cool. All right. Well, what about a favorite part or memory? And obviously we're focusing on this year. And as we mentioned, it was a virtual element this year, given just kind of locations and things like that. But was there any favorite part or memory from, this year specifically, even if it was like, hey, we ran into kind of not an issue, but just kind of a little hurdle during it and, overcoming it or whatever it was. But, is there any favorite part or memory of this year's hackathon event that you guys could speak to?
I can take that one. Also, just talking about my experience with Sitecore Hackathon, I really enjoyed the experience because it's basically an opportunity to try new things, right? Usually, like the ideas that offered for the competition is basically built on the top of the new products that Sitecore released recently. So this year, as James mentioned, we had the opportunity to try Sitecore Connect, Sitecore block design system. So these are basically new products that Sitecore released recently, in addition, of course, to the exam cloud. So and also the opportunity to collaborate with like-minded individuals and basically push the boundaries of what's possible with the Sitecore ecosystem. It has been energizing. These challenges and learning opportunities are really cool and a great chance for everyone to participate in.
Really enjoyed working with James and Mohammed. It's been a while since I've worked with them, and they're rock stars. So it's awesome. Really kind of seeing we're collaborating with them, and I felt like this year we were remote, but it really didn't really feel like remote. We're all on a call, so we had a constant Teams call going on, and it was you have to step away, come back. There's a bit of a time zone difference between us and Mohammed, so he worked on part of it while we were asleep, and then he came back and picked up. So.
And he finished it while everyone was asleep. No, I love that though. That's a great point. And I love hearing that it felt like, even though it was remote, it still felt like, everybody was working together. And I think that's actually a great point from you, Simon, that, getting everyone here has been with the company for 5+ years. I mean, ranging up into a decade. And so I think it's cool that while everybody is working at the same company, not everybody gets to work on the same projects or gets to work together. So this is actually, that's a really good point, that this is an opportunity to kind of get to work with people that, you may have worked with, a few years ago, or, on this project or that project in the past, but kind of bringing collaborative minds together. So it's a great point.
One thing I always enjoy with the hackathon is when you get the aha moment, or you find some solution that's really satisfying.
Yeah.
And then also exploring things and finding the limits of things and understanding those. So like with the Sitecore block system, I feel like it's a good enabler for future modules and kind of reigniting the module community. But there's a couple of things that I think if it adds it, it'll make it even more so. It'll just, throw fuel on the fire. So like one is, being able to link to it from the Sitecore portal. So you can have your own square in the portal so it feels like it's all one thing. Yeah. And then being able to carry over that single sign-on into your app. So that way, if they sign in with Sitecore, they're signed into your app. Those would be really great to have. And also just like, so the block component library has a lot of components that it makes it really easy to get up and running quickly. But there's a few like Sitecore components that'd be nice to have, like, the tree view or interacting with the search. And so I think as that continues to develop, once we get those key pieces, it's really going to ignite the module community. One thing I wish we would have had that is actually available, we just didn't know it during the hackathon, was some more examples of using the block library, and like kind of like the shell template of like what's the whole, like, yeah, we've got little components, but like, can I just have a starter layout for the whole app?
Right.
So we had to build our own, but then after the hackathon, I found Mark Van Alst, the director of developer experience at Sitecore, actually has a repo with a bunch of examples. I'm like, I wish I would have seen that. So shout out
that might
for that repo. Just search Sitecore block, no C, just BLOK, Sitecore block examples, and you'll see Mark's blog post and the link to his Git repo for great examples.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, no, that's always fun to realize after the fact, right? No, but that's great. And I think that is also a really great part about this community, is that there are people that are constantly kind of building things and experiencing different things. And then they outreach to the community and make sure that, hey, this is a cool thing that I built or cool thing that I did. And, like letting people kind of leverage in different areas. So no, that's awesome. All right. So again, we weren't in office. So I was going to ask favorite snack, but I think I want a little bit of a story time from Casey in terms of what we actually did try to provide for these guys. James gave the DoorDash shout out a little bit ago, but Casey, you want to talk through the snack planning for this?
Yeah. That very important.
Yes.
It's very this year was a little bit difficult. We had to send things a couple different places. The biggest difficulty was getting a pizza to Simon because he recently moved, and I was hitting up all these pizza places where he is, and they're like, "Oh, you're just outside the radius. Oh, you're just outside the radius." So I had to call about 5 or 6 different pizza places, tried a couple different ones online, and I finally got one to him, and just a little bit overweight, but it was all worth it in the end. And I think Simon's got his new Friday night pizza spot.
There we go.
Yeah, I appreciated that, Casey. All that work.
There we go. Yeah, Casey almost made you a pizza himself. We almost resorted.
Would have driven it out. Might have gotten there at midnight, but
it's fine.
Worth it.
It's fine. Very cool. Very cool. As we've talked about, every year we have to come up with a team name for the hackathon event. And so this year we came up with the Cloud Surfers. And I don't think we got as much slack on it as we did last year. The team names last year we got a lot of heat for, and I don't really know why. But I will say that the Cloud Surfers, we got a great logo design. Shout out to Melvin Williams, our creative director, for creating a pretty cool logo that I think maybe we'll put on a t-shirt. We'll see. Yeah, there we go.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. There we go. There we go. So I have to ask you guys if you guys were the ones that were coming up with the name, because again, you guys, you got to code for 24 hours. So we'll do the creative side of coming up with the name and logo. But if you guys were tasked with coming up with the name, any options you think you would throw out there?
I'm really glad you guys came up with a name, because most teams come up with their own name, but that was one less thing I had to think about.
There we go.
It's hit or miss for me. So.
Yeah.
I just think we have to all take the team surfing now. I've never gone in my life, but I think as a celebration, we might have to go do a little surfing in the clouds.
In the clouds. James, Mohammed, Simon, Casey, thank you guys for all joining us at the water cooler today. I look forward to further collaborating with you guys all soon in the future, and we hope to have you back on the water cooler again soon. Thanks again to James Gregory, Mohammed Siam, Simon Dabrowski, and Casey Stanutz for joining us today on the Sitecore Water Cooler Podcast, a casual conversation between colleagues and peers centered around all things Sitecore. I'm your co-host, Maggie Burke, and until the next time we meet at the water cooler, be sure to subscribe to the Sitecore Water Cooler Podcast today wherever you find your podcasts. This episode is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios with special thanks to executive producers Renee Nelson, Julia Klepich, and Brian Winger.